Hello, and welcome back to Games Benchmarked. It feels like it was just yesterday when first-generation Ryzen processors were released. But it was actually almost 4 years ago. And right away, everybody understood, shit. This is huge. Let's hear what Hardware Unboxed, Hardware Canucks, and Linus had to say about those processors when they were released.
At the end of the day, when you consider what AMD was coming from, and look at what they have achieved with Ryzen, it's nothing short of amazing. I'm personally very excited to see AMD delivering a competitive high-end CPU, and it shall be very interesting to see how well they can refine the Zen architecture over the coming years.
And I can't help but be impressed with what's been accomplished. Even with this small single CPU glance into what can be accomplished, it's hard not to be excited about what else can be accomplished with this processor design as it matures.
But what they have done, when you factor in the entire suite of tests, is deliver just as much bang for the buck as Team Blue right now. And that is a very good thing.
So, conclusions were very optimistic, but at the same time a bit cautious, and that's understandable. 4 years ago, all those technologies, Infinity Fabric, CCX, Precision Boost still was brand new and nobody knew what to think about them. But what looked like just a small fire, now is a wildfire, called Ryzen 5000. It is time we take a look. Is 1600 finally ready to? Press F to pay respect. Bite the dust? Go home in a box. Ride the pale horse. Shake hands with Elvis. I think we all understand where this is going. 1600 against 5600X. Let's start with quick overview of both processors. 1600 is built on 14nm Global Foundries node, while 5600X was moved to TSMC 7nm node. If GF node was not most competitive, say the least, then TSMC is leading edge. 5600X have 1000 MHz higher boost frequency and although 16 MB more cache. Both are 6 cores and 12 threads, 65 watt TDP. But 5600X is 50% more expensive. Can 5600X with all its advantages finally allow 1600 to rest in peace? Let's find out. For my testing I have overclocked both processors. 1600 is locked at 38,000 MHz, but 5600X have dynamic overclock of 200 MHz. First, we will start with productivity benchmarks. First set of tasks are in seconds, lower is better. As we can see, all workloads have significant gains, except DaVinci Resolve. We are looking from 47 to 50% improvement in all workloads, but DaVinci 5600X is only 34% faster. Second set of tasks are in points, higher is better. Biggest gain is in Geekbench single-core test, 68%. Rest of the tests have more modest gains from 41% in Geekbench multicore to 63% in Cinebench R20. So, this is even bigger jump than Ryzen first generation was over Bulldozer. Now it is time for one task where 5600X is supposed to shine the most, gaming. I have used 10 games, newer and older titles. Some games are at 720p and some at 1080p. Not all games support my overlay perfectly with different resolutions. But almost always I am CPU bound even with RTX 2060. But often even at 720p 5600X can come very close to full utilization of this mid-range GPU. As always recording is done with GPU running the game. If you want most accurate results skip to the end of each title. Those FPS numbers are captured without recording.
Vivaldi's taking over the auction house.
Everyone to me! To me!
Hey, pretty boy. What do I do?
First game is Witcher 3. Just looking at average FPS, 5600 is much faster. 231 FPS against 156, or 48% faster. If we look at frame time chart then 1600 is very smooth and you will not experience any stuttering because of CPU. 5600X does not increase frame time interval, but significantly reduce frame time. Next game is Assassin's Creed, Odyssey. 5600X enjoys only 42% win in average FPS. But in frame time consistency 1600 it is actually a tie. Run this test multiple times, 5600X just cannot get good frame time interval in this title at 720p in low settings.
Damn it! Diddy! We just lost our backup! Shit! Down! I got you. Fire in the hole!
In Gears of War 5 it is utter devastation. In average FPS, 5600 is almost 2 times faster and its frame time interval is much more consistent. Shadow of the Tomb Raider offers only modest 69% gains, 153 FPS against 258. Frame time looks good for both processors, but 5600X is a bit smoother.
Some 10-foot drillers iron on.
Red Dead Redemption 2 is very good at utilizing multiple threads. On average 5600X scores 41 FPS more. Both processors have very good and consistent frame times, but 5600X have couple more spikes. They do not exceed 1600 spikes, but take from base value of around 9 milliseconds, they are higher.
Ecclesiastical extraction? Good one.
Oh, sir, I recognize that thing. It's a scrapjack.
Let me take it apart so you can have a closer look.
Serious Sam 4 is one of the newest titles and one of the worst, optimization-wise. It is linear, like Doom, but performs like complicated open-world title. And in games like these 5600X shines, boosting average FPS for 75%. Unfortunately, frame time graph is a mess for both processors.
Is why the zone is off limits? I mean, if all the packs here are like that. Too high. Hey, Artyom, help me get out there. Shit! Come up now. I got you. Did you hear that, Artyom? Something large roaring. At least it was far away.
Metro Exodus is another almost convincing win for 5600X. It is 69% faster in average FPS. And if we look how consistent frame times are, it looks close, but 5600X have couple of very high spikes, which can be noticed as micro stutter, so I have to give small win to 1600 here. Horizon Zero Dawn is GPU bound even on low settings at 720p. So differences is lower than with other titles. But still, 5600X enjoys solid 38% lead. Both charts are with a lot of spikes, but 5600X is definitely more inconsistent frame time wise.
Sam, if you want to confirm you're headed the right way, check your compass. It'll never steer you wrong. Provided you have a destination, that is. Central wasn't just home to Bridges HQ. It was also the seat of the Reconstructionist movement. If the president hadn't required special treatment, she would have never left. And if she hadn't, we wouldn't have either.
Death Stranding is one of the newest titles and it runs pretty well on both processors. Unfortunately for 5600X I am GPU bound, so gains are smaller than expected, only 37%. Frame time is much smoother on 5600X, so very convincing win for latest AMD hexacore. Last game is Total War, Troy. This is only game where I deliberately chose to be GPU bound. It was mainly for two reasons. First, reducing quality drastically reduces CPU load. Second, I wanted to show how it looks when you are GPU bound. But, unfortunately 1600 could not fully utilize RTX 2060 throughout whole benchmark. But, is very clearly visible how flatter frame time line looks. 1600 have much bigger frame time interval. So even if we look at average FPS, difference is only 10%. Frame time interval is showing much bigger difference. So, it is time to wrap this up. On average 5600X was 58% faster, with Total War, Troy excluded. That is actually more than I expected, pretty impressive. One saving grace for 1600 owners is that this CPU is incredibly consistent with really good frame time interval. If you are not targeting 100 plus FPS, then 1600 can still hold. But, if you want that 100 plus FPS experience, have monitor and GPU that can support that, then upgrade is a must. Even if you are somewhat GPU bound, 5600X can provide better frame time intervals as shown in Total War, Troy. One issue I mentioned in my previous video is random frame time spikes for 15600X, and I actually think it could be I/O issue. Maybe my RAM is too slow. I have cheapest 32000 CL16 kit. Now, is it worth the upgrade? Can you finally send your old 1600 to retirement? Well, you will have to spend around $450 for new CPU and motherboard, but you can sell your old stuff for around $100 to $150, so that should offset upgrade cost a bit. But, yes, even with mid-range graphics card like RTX 2060 you can benefit from faster CPU. And I have to mention productivity, often you will be able to do your job even 50% faster. If we look from pure value perspective, maybe it does not look so enticing. 50% more expensive for 50 to 60% more performance, depends from workload. But you must understand, 1600 was meant to just have AMD foot in door before Intel fully closes it, but 5600X is actually already throwing Intel stuff out. AMD is just cashing in, big time, With 5000 series, and unless Intel can respond with something good, AMD will continue to inflate prices of their products. Thanks for watching and staying until the end. If you liked it, hit the like button. If you have any questions, please post them in comments. I will be very happy to answer all of them. If you do not want to miss my next video, consider subscribing.